Okay, well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name's Miranda. I'm a content marketer working for Timworks, which is a client support app specifically designed for accountants and their clients. And today we are discussing GDPR and compliance when it comes to communication software with Bill Mew. Bill, hi, would you like to say a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm a leading global campaigner for digital ethics and privacy. I'm also a technology expert, a columnist for Accounting Web, a judge on various different awards, including the Cloud Awards, and I spend a lot of time advising large corporates and also the government on privacy, digital ethics, and innovation and best use of technology.
Fantastic. So Bill helped us to write a white paper for specifically for GDPR compliance when it comes to accountants and how they can best communicate in a safe and compliant manner with their clients. How can they support them without worrying that they can get in any sort of trouble? So would you like to say a little bit about that paper, just to give?
Yeah, well, I've been focused for some time on how companies deal with a number of the different regulatory challenges in terms of compliance. GDPR is a obviously very major set of regulations that need to be abided by because personal information is obviously very valuable to us all. Accountants need to understand that not only do they need to abide by GDPR in everything that they do, but in their interactions with their clients, they need to ensure that they're not inducing their clients to breach confidences or share personal information in a manner that possibly isn't compliant.
Yes, that's very, very important and is not to be underestimated. And shall we start by maybe giving a little bit of a background on explaining why certain communication software is not appropriate and what are the risks involved?
Well, one of the problems that we have, and there's a whole spectrum of them, is that you have a number of personal messaging applications that aren't designed to be used for corporate use, for complying with GDPR, for retaining an immutable and tamper-proof record. They're simply used for convenience. And because they weren't designed for use by professional services organizations like accountants in their interactions with their clients and with others, including colleagues, then they're not actually set up correctly. Now, let me explain some of the pitfalls here. First of all, you need to be GDPR compliant, obviously. And if you make what is understandably a possibly an obvious mistake when you're an accountant and you're giving some advice to someone and you share some personal information about an address or a phone number or any sort of personally identifiable information via WhatsApp or any personal communications app, then you're immediately in breach of GDPR. Partly this is because these platforms themselves aren't GDPR compliant because the data doesn't comply with what used to be called privacy shields, which has been overturned. And there is no legal basis for us to be sharing that data outside the UK or the EU with America. And because platforms such as WhatsApp and a number of other platforms that are US owned and operated are beyond the actual safe confine that we have with GDPR in Europe, and they can be snooped on by the NSA and others. They actually count as a transfer, an international transfer to the US each time you use those platforms, even if you're only using the servers operated by these companies in Europe. So at a starting point, the moment you're using WhatsApp or a lot of the SaaS or cloud apps that are operated by large US firms, you're immediately breaching GDPR. Now, On top of that, and the problems don't stop there, these applications don't have centrally managed and recorded communications. This opens you up to all sorts of other problems. Basically, what you need if you're giving advice to clients where there may further down the line be some sort of misinterpretation or dispute, you need a tamper-proof, immutable record of what the conversation and what the advice given was. And if there is a dispute later on as to what was said and you have been communicating over WhatsApp, well, any individual can delete these records. They're not tamper proof. You may not have kept something. If somebody leaves the company, it's a personal app and they will take the data with them, and with it sort of any personally identifiable information, making you all in breach of GDPR. But on top of that, you can't then present your conversations on WhatsApp in terms of evidence in a dispute, because it's not tamper-proof. You can delete certain records where you didn't want that to appear. And therefore what you need to have is some sort of platform which is centrally managed so that all of the records can be stored and retained, where they are tamper-proof and they are retained, and also a platform that's GDPR compliant. Now, all of this is really important, and people overlook the sort of the problems you may run into. We've had a number of major trading banks in America that have been fined billions because they have been illicitly communicating with clients over WhatsApp, and that hasn't been the sort of retained records that they need to have in terms of offering financial advice or whatever. We've had even the government in the UK sanctioned because under freedom of information regulations, it needs to keep tamper-proof records. And some of the people within the health service and elsewhere were using WhatsApp to communicate. And when freedom of information request came in and they weren't able to provide this, then they were in breach. And I think accountants need to be, first of all, really careful about how they protect their reputation. An accounting firm has not much in the way of fixed assets. It does have its staff and it has its reputation. These are the greatest assets that any sort of accounting firm can have. You don't want to be cavalier with the way that you treat data and either have a breach of GDPR or an awkward situation with a client where you haven't retained tamper-proof records. Not only because of the risk that you can do to your reputation, but also if you'll put your client in breach of GDPR or anything else, then in terms of their reputation as well, and that will also reflect on yours. So any accountant wanting to actually reduce the potential risk here should absolutely avoid the use of any personal messaging apps with clients, including WhatsApp and any of the other similar applications, and focus on an application like Timworks that is GDPR compliant, does have immutable tamper-proof records if you set it up correctly, and will put you in a position where your brand, your reputation is protected.
Thank you. Yeah,
Any
I
other
feel like this
questions?
covers, yeah, I was going to say that I feel like this covers a lot of what we wanted to explain today to any accountants that are still using a US-based software. And you did mention what a failure can mean for accountants, how it can affect their reputation. And should small firms consider it and worry about this as much as large ones?
I think GDPR and other regulations should be seen as a universal obligation for companies of all sizes. It doesn't matter if you're a small accounting firm or if you're a very large one. The assets that you have are simply your staff and your brand. Even if you're a relatively small organization, you need to protect and nurture that brand. if you're going to be cavalier with your data communications, if you're going to be operating in breach of GDPR, if you're not going to retain tamper-proof records that are going to protect you in the event of a dispute or a misinterpretation even of the advice that you've given, then you're being somewhat cavalier. I would recommend that organisations of all sizes take this very seriously.
Great, great. And what are the first steps that a firm can take in order to ensure that? Because it could be challenging for any accountancy firm, big or small, to implement that and ensure that this is happening at all times within their firm and with the external communication as well.
There are some very simple steps that I would recommend all accounting firms take in order to actually be somewhat rigorous in the protection of personal identifiable information, intellectual property, all of the big data assets that are so valuable to them, including their reputation. You can start with some very straightforward cybersecurity rules because you need security in order to have privacy and compliance. So make sure your staff have phishing training, make sure you're using multi-factor authentication, safe passwords and the like. But then also please, and I would advocate in the strongest possible terms, please avoid all use of personal messaging apps like WhatsApp in your interaction with your clients. You can use email because you have immutable copies of email and it's very easy to manage and to seek to keep GDPR compliant. You can also use a messaging app like TimWorks that is set up specifically for accountants and provides you with a GDPR compliant framework and also has the ability to keep tamper-proof records. And ultimately, some of these steps are fairly straightforward and should be standard practice. But they're absolutely essential if you're going to protect your reputation and the actually relationship that you have with your clients.
Yes, completely agree. Thank you so much. This has been very, very insightful and will hopefully help and be eye-opening for a lot of people. And for anyone that wants to deep dive into the whole GDPR for accountants topic, we've got a white paper. If you scan the QR code that is showing up right now, it will take you straight to the website where you can download it for free and ensure and follow a checklist where you can ensure that the software that you are using to communicate with your clients is GDPR compliant and what are the best ways to do that.
And the only thing that I would add is that this may appear to be quite a challenge for some of the organisations out there of any size. But we've gone to the trouble, and I've worked with TimWorks to put together a paper that explains GDPR in easy, approachable terms for accountants specifically. So here is the QR code. You can pause the video, you can point your phone at it and take it straight through to the link. And this will provide you with an easily digestible guide to how you need to act in order to keep your data safe, to comply with GDPR, and to protect your most valuable assets, your reputation, your data, and the relationship that you have with your clients.